Well, it is Father's Day today, and a father's job is never done. My father, from the other side, still teaches me. So today we're going to call this the Playbook. The Playbook, of course, being the Bible. But if the father is doing his job, the father of the children, then he continuously goes back to the Playbook. And I found some quotes and things that I think are appropriate. To me, Father's Day, most people look at it as a day to say, congratulations, happy Father's Day, or whatever it is, kind of about the father. And what I want to do is I would like to focus on, for the sake of the people that are listening and or our children, our grandchildren, because when you're bringing up your children, you're bringing up your grandchildren as well. Because how you bring up your children is going to be the ripple effect into your grandkids and so on and so forth. But, of course, I had an unusual father, and he did a really great job being a dad, in my opinion. He was tough, but he was loving. I never questioned whether or not he loved me, except when I was about 14, because he wouldn't let me go out with my buddies. And then, of course, I doubted everything, but he knew what was right, and I didn't. And that's where he had to be the leader, and I needed to obey. And when I didn't obey, of course, he had a way of making sure that I would regret that. Whether it was being grounded or if I did something really bad, it was a few swats with a belt, which nobody likes. Today, if you do that, you probably get put in jail, which is bizarre, but so much for that. So I did what I like to do just to see what is out there. And I said, hey, Siri. And I said, tell me about Father's Day. And of course, there's all kinds of things that came up. But one that came up were some Bible quotes, which I think are great. And I'm very transparent. I don't want you to think that I sat down and went into the Bible and found these, because it would take so much time. But that's the beauty of technology. You can have a problem and you can just, go to the internet and you can find the answers. You can also find path to hell, so you have to be very careful. Ephesians 6:4. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. So, what's interesting about that one is that a lot of fathers don't realize that they are in competition with their sons and their daughters and their kids. And so what happens is, instead of realizing their role, instead of accepting their role and loving the role that God gave them as a father, they look at it as a challenge. Like, I'm stronger than you, I'm faster than you, I'm smarter than you. And I may have played that game for a few minutes in my life because I wasn't mature enough. I didn't understand. I didn't really see the damage that I had done or could do or would do until I did it. And then I had to go, what just happened there? That backfired so bad. My kid didn't look up to me and go, yeah, you're faster than me because you're my dad. He went, well, you're a jerk. And he walked away. I mean, maturity is something that you kind of have to live some life to get. You don't get it in a package. You can't order it from Amazon. You just have to, sometimes you have to make mistakes. And I remember doing that with a couple of my kids and regretted it. And then had another chance to do it right the next time. As an adult, as a grandfather, because tomorrow is my 61st birthday, as a grandfather, I told the story before about how I barked at my grandson who was 3. And wow, the conscience is alive. It's alive and well. And it said, that wasn't right. You gave into a little bit of, ego, a little bit of pride, and you, or whatever it was, he was banging on the table that we had made, and I'm just going, oh my gosh, he's going to put dents in my brand new tabletop. And instead of just going, hey, and catching his attention and saying, come on, let's go play outside, I barked at him, and he looked at me like, wow, that hurt. He's 3 years old. I'm 60 years old. So it rolled around in my head for a few days. I've told this story before, but I knew I needed to apologize for that So I sat down on the floor when I had a chance to see him by himself, and I said, hey, Owen, I said, remember that the other day when Grandpa yelled at you about banging your ex-man on the table? And he looked at me like, yeah, because he was afraid of what's coming next. I said, I'm sorry. And he looked at me and he goes, okay. And he just went back to playing. Because children forgive immediately. If they see the sincerity, they're relieved, they forgive, and they move on with their life. And the problem is with us as adults, we don't want to forgive. We don't want to forgive. We want to hold on to that and get revenge. And the bad part about that, of course, is forgiveness is the secret. There's a number of secrets of life, and one of the biggies is forgiveness, because what did Christ say on the cross? Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Forgiveness is realizing that we're all imperfect, that we're all going to make mistakes, that sin is not evil, it's missing the mark. Sin is an archer's word. If you don't hit the bullseye, you take another arrow out of your quiver and you pull the bow back and you raise your sights and you try again. And if you are sorry for your mistake, then you move on with life. If somebody apologizes to you and you see the sincerity in them and you let it go, because what happens is we hold on. And if we hold on, it's a nail in our coffin. If we let go, that's forgiveness, to let go and let God.
But how do you learn to let go?
Well, perhaps it is just living life and understanding that if you don't let go, you will surely die. Because truthfully, holding on, like I said, is a nail in the coffin. And so you have to live a certain amount of life. This gentleman I happen to know, he was here last week. He talked about having a stroke and falling out of bed and crying like a baby on the floor. And at that moment, at that defining moment, which you can have them in a lot, like I had mine, I realized I had made a mistake. And I let go of my own self-judgment. And I also let go of any other judgment that God or the parent or the child may have for me. And I realized the only exit door to this sin is to apologize and to ask forgiveness and to repent. So repentance and apologizing is really the exit door to that.
Didn't your father say, be an example? You got to be you could talk and apologize, but if you aren't truly an example of good, nobody will listen to you.
This is true.
Nobody can be a perfect example, and I believe a good example is not being too proud to apologize. That's also a good example, showing your kids if you make a mistake, Dad can apologize, and so can they.
Here's my problem with my kids. The thing is I apologize to my kids, but my kids look at me, and I'm a little better, but they look at me and they go, oh, shut up, just get away from me. And this is no apology. And they just get resentful and leave. And it's because I'm mad.
We've set our kids up terribly through raising them. And they're set in their ways now, and they're going to give us what we gave them, basically. So we just have to keep forgiving and being an example of what love truly is.
They had to weather years of us. So we're going to have to weather however long it takes and just continue planting seeds from a different place and not resenting them back. And at some point, they may grasp onto that and be able to let go. But now we got to weather whatever they have.
How do you turn off resentment?
You have a heart to be willing to see that you have resentment. It takes that special kind of wanting to know, searching. It does take that element, and who knows who has it, who doesn't have it. You don't know.
I wish I had a mother like you.
Ask her son.
Right.
Right? No, because
I'm weathering a big storm.
we all are. We all are, because none of us were perfect. But guess what? I've heard my dad say so many times, and this is the word that all of us are going to recognize as the observation meditation exercise. Observe, watch, be the watcher. And if you can separate yourself from your resentment, from your anger, because this is a secret. Maybe today we'll talk about a little bit of the secrets. Another secret is to be able to separate yourself from that is not you. You're inside of there with something else. And until you recognize that, and you can call it a science fiction movie or whatever, but there's two entities inside of this one person.
I was shaking coming here. Something inside of me didn't want to come. And I said, hey, you got to sit with people that are better than you to grow, to be better. That's why I'm sitting here.
Well, good for you. Good for you. So, to observe oneself, I come back to that Blaise Pascal statement that all of man's problems stem from his inability to sit in a room by himself. And if you can become the observer by doing the meditation exercise, you're able to all of a sudden recognize this other entity. And then the more you see it, the more you recognize it.
You said something the other day, and it triggered something in me. You said that you sat in a room and you watched all these thoughts. I think you were in a hospital or something like that. I realized after your talk that I must be doing the meditation wrong. Could you explain to me what you do when you meditate?
First of all, everybody should go to the 7-minute meditation, because my dad actually explains it, and it took 7 minutes. That's why they call it the 7-minute meditation, okay? Right, well, and we could put it on the end of this, which I think would be a great idea. We've done it before. But I watched my father. I said, Dad, do you do the same stuff that you teach everybody to do, and you sit there and do this, that, and the other? He says, well, at a certain point, you have like the control. It's like when you have a skill at, making furniture. In the beginning, you really have to pay close attention to every little piece. And if you're making a dovetail, you have to make sure it fits right. And all these pieces you're creating to create the furniture. The expert furniture maker, he does it in stride. He doesn't have to think about each part of it because it's now part of him. And so my dad says, I live in a continuous state of consciousness. We could call that a continuous state of meditation, because he's constantly watching and observing life from that position of, if you come at him, well, okay, he says, what about thoughts? Well, yes, you do, but they aren't really yours. Most of these thoughts are just part of that mechanism that the devil has to try and pull you out of your conscious state. So in the talk last week, we talked about standing ready, being ready. And I said something about we all have to be the apostles. We all have to be the ones that spread the word. And one of the ladies here said, but I feel a pressure. She says, I don't feel like I have to do anything. I'm just sitting here ready. I'm ready, willing, and able to do whatever God puts in my heart to do. So there's zero pressure, which I got.
Something that your dad said. He said, like that incident you had in Ventura when he went out in the middle of the street in front of these guys dragging down the street. The thing is, he just was in a very calm, meditative state. Didn't react. The car almost hit him, slammed on his brakes. And he explained that when you do not use anger, God comes to protect you. And he puts an aura around you, like an umbrella. I tell my sons, if you're under the umbrella, God will protect you. And God protected your dad. These people were so scared of him, they just pulled up their pants and got in the car and took off, and they left. And I've been learning, when I see anger, is just to watch it until it goes down. And then I'm learning what your dad said. You got to learn to be patient, and God will come and protect you. How, I don't know.
I was there that day when that happened, and we thought my dad was crazy. We thought he's going to get killed. We were yelling, get out of the street! And my dad stood there in the middle of the street, little 5'7", little Jewish man, and these gigantic Hells Angels bikers, the kind of people. And we thought to ourselves, he's crazy. Because see, when you're not when you're not in that realm where he was, it looked crazy to us. But it also looked scary to them, because who does this stuff? Well, a man who loves the Lord with all his heart, his mind, and his soul. And therefore, he is under that protection. Because anybody else could walk out in the street and put their arm out and say, stop. And, guess what? They're going to get run over. My father was an unusual man. But as we strive to reach that higher ground, and we are watchers or observers of our own thoughts, and we see these things, they're in the world. Listen, the clouds go by and you don't go, oh gosh, look at those clouds. Every now and then they're so beautiful, you do. Or every now and then they're so ominous, you do. But every day there's clouds. They're way, way, way up in the sky. And after a while, you start to see these thoughts, and they're there, but they're way, way, way up in the sky. They can't touch me. I'm getting to that point where, I can see the clouds coming down. I can see them coming down, and I just look at them and they go back up again. In other words, I think this protection that we have from the observation meditation exercise is to recognize that, yes, there's evil in the world, but it can't touch you. And if it tries to sneak up on you, or it tries to get you through somebody saying something cruel, mean, insensitive, or whatever, instead of becoming a snowflake, you become stronger because you see that it can do nothing to you. It can't hurt you, it can't touch you, it can't affect you, because
The devil can't hurt you.
the devil is literally got no power unless you give it to him. He has zero power.
How does the devil get power?
You give it to him. You give it to him through reaction, through getting angry, through judging, through being lustful, through being emotional, through using his domain. Okay? If you live in the Spirit and you live your life with innocence, then God puts his understanding in your heart, and you understand. And it's not something I can explain to you. It's something you must achieve through rising to that place where you just one day, you look at life and you go, wow, this whole place is a giant facade. It's really a testing ground. It's a testing ground for us. It's a fantastic testing ground. As a car guy, I go to these racetracks and these testing grounds for the automakers, and they have the most beautiful race courses and everything that nobody ever gets to use. But they have to test the car first before they put it for sale to the general public. So this is the testing ground before we can go to that other place, the place that God has prepared for us.
One thing that meant a lot to me is you said your dad became very chill before his death. And your mother, I saw her in her bed, with her broken hip and everything. And the innocence moved me.
It's true. The last couple of years, my dad was truly a gentle human being, just as gentle and sweet. A little boy. I mean, I have a little 3-year-old grandson. I have a little 2-year-old grandson, a little 6-month-old granddaughter. And I see that same innocence. And what does it say in the Bible? That in order to return to the kingdom of heaven, you must come as a child. And so I recognized that at a certain point, I had to be my father's father. I had to be my father's dad, his protector. And there were a number of times where I go, here, Dad, hold my hand. And I remember reaching up and holding my dad's hand when I was a little boy. And he'd hold my hand and he'd look at me and he'd smile. And I recognized the difference is that he was on his way to the other side, and I was now the father in that moment, and he was the little child, and I was his escort for a time. And it was a beautiful time. It was a fantastic time for me, because he used to always tell me how much he loved me and how much he appreciated me, and always please and thank you. He was the perfect little boy. He learned all his manners. He was always thoughtful. He was always, if you gave him some food, he'd say, do you want some? Oh, here, have some. No, Dad, that's for you. That's fine. You eat it.
Like just helpless kids?
Not helpless. Childlike, innocent, sweet, giving, loving, caring, thoughtful.
And we can't criticize anybody?
No, I never said you couldn't criticize anybody.
Well, you're telling me I need to be this little nice kid telling everybody I love everybody. That's not what we're supposed to end up like, is it?
Well, I think, yes, if you want to finish well on that far end, which you're probably got a long way to go, because you're not going to die anytime soon. You're in your 70s. You may go another 25 years. As you go toward that end place,
The battery lasts.
if the battery lasts, But as you go toward the end of your life, because we're talking about the end of a man's life that all of us know so well, there was Leonidas. Come on. He was the guy that was fearless, stood in front of the Hell's Angels and made them get the hell out of there because they were afraid of him. But in the end days, and even actually, I'm going to go back 1 year, okay? My dad, I can tell you, there was a day that he didn't want my mom to go back into this little health facility she was in because she was in pretty tough shape. Here he is, 92 years old. And we took my mom out for lunch, and he decided she's coming home with me. Well, she was in further decline than him. And she couldn't walk. She couldn't really take care of herself. She really, really needed help 24/7. And there was an instance where he just said, no, she's going with me. And so, I mean, at a certain point, the place called the police because they didn't know what to do. And my dad stood up against this 6'2" cop, looked him right in the eye and says, "You're afraid of me, aren't you?" Here's my little 92-year-old dad. And so they eventually said, "Look, you can come back tomorrow. You can come back tomorrow, but she needs to stay here tonight." But I have to tell you what I saw, and thank God in this little town we have some wonderful police. The police actually convinced my dad to go ahead and, go home, and I went home with him, and then come back tomorrow. But my dad, to your point, Chuck, was courageous to the end, but he also knew when to let go. He knew when to let go of that and become the little child. Well, what is letting go, he says? I mean, that's to each in his own time and ability, okay? When you take Leonidas, if you know who Leonidas is from the 300, most people in their lives before they're able to do what my father did, which was he lived a full life to 93 years old. And he was able to look at himself, I believe, and recognize that at a certain point he said, "Alan, I need your help to run the foundation." I knew he was sincere about that. I knew he was sincere about that.
Somebody here said that you, since your father's death, your passing, that you've really grown and you're really in gear. You're in sync with your dad, and I don't know how to say anything else, but you're getting stronger, and we appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I listened to last week's talk, and my dad said to me about 3 years ago, he said, "You talk too fast." And I thought, well, that's just because you can't hear me, and you want me to slow down because you can't hear me that well. But no. So when I listened to the talk, my dad said into my heart, "You talk too fast."
That's funny because I said to Charles, was Alan on coffee? Because he was talking so fast. I said it to you, remember? That is so funny.
I'm on coffee right now, but I have to control. It's just, you know what it is? It boils down to being aware of it, being conscious of it, not making an excuse for it. See, I made an excuse for it. But I made an excuse for it, and it would have stayed the same. And instead, this morning, I heard it. And I said, no, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop being this machine gun mouth.
You said something about, we have good and bad thoughts. I was taking a hike yesterday, and I was starting to get really tired, so I started, thoughts started to come. And I noticed distinctly that most of them were negative, and just they were teasing me to try to get resentful over a certain situation or whatever. I don't know, something that happened in the past. But then a good thought would occur. So it wasn't the first time I'd seen this, but the source was the same source, whether it's the good thought or the bad thought.
Do you mean good thoughts come from the devil?
Sure it can, absolutely. But what I realized that in the stillness, it's like a flash. It's like a realization, the reality, the goodness. It's not the same as the words of goodness, but the intellect, evil, whatever, but I don't think of, it's the intellect. It converts the flash into words. You know what I'm saying? It's trying to take you away from the actual source of it.
Okay, I'm going to say what you said. You said you got to stay in the now with the meditation and let these good and bad thoughts keep you I mean, you got to kind of observe.
Let me correct that. It's just thoughts. Thoughts, good and bad thoughts. Listen, the devil can use whatever tools he wants, and you can start to judge good and judge bad. Have you ever thought about that you judge good also? You judge someone good. People judge me good. That's why I changed my name and just went off and lived my life. I thought, I'm tired of being judged good. Everybody's like, well, you're Roy Master's son. You got to be good. Well, that's a horrible thing to put on somebody. Just don't judge me at all. Just don't judge your thoughts at all. Just watch those thoughts. Don't analyze those thoughts. If you get caught up in the analyzing of the thought, it's got you again. Observe and to watch. Be the watcher. Don't know. Don't not know. Just watch. Because when he puts his love in your heart, which is truth, okay? It isn't so much thoughts. It's just truth, and you move on the truth. And you don't have to think about it. It's why I talked about, if you've watched, I hope you guys are watching this series, The Chosen, because it's really wonderful. But when they said Jesus was rehearsing his speech on the Mount that he was going to do, immediately I thought, no, sir. That was a speech from God that was divinely inspired. You don't rehearse that. No, this I know. I don't have to question. I don't have to ask. I don't even have to think about it. I just, nope, that's wrong. But it was one of the few times I actually thought that about that television series, The Chosen. It's really well done. But as we continue this conversation about fatherhood, isn't it interesting how it doesn't matter, because it boils down to us refining ourselves as God's children. The Father is the example. He sent his Son to be a physical example. And he walked the walk and talked the talk, like you said. But guess what? He knows we're all flawed. He knows we're going to make mistakes. He gave us this roughly 100 years to work it out. And you may be, 70? You've got kids that are in their 30s and 40s, whatever it is. Your job is to stay alive and walk the walk, talk the talk, live the life, refine yourself, refine how you talk. If you talk too fast, slow down. If you walk too fast, slow down.
I realized something in about the last week. I think I had a stroke because it woke me up. It turned my whole life upside down, and I could have died that night. And first thing I did is I got out the meditation and I started listening to your dad's programs more and more and more. And I said, I've got to get myself, I got to listen to people that are better than me and change.
First of all, you got to stop saying people that are better than you. You have already, once again, see, if you judge me as a good person and you judge the other person as a bad person, that's judgment. If you judge yourself as a bad person, you're going to be around better people. I get what you're coming, but as you become more conscious, you won't even say things like that. You want to be around like-minded people, okay? Right. Because you can have higher conversations than the football game or whatever it is that most people spend their life talking about. And at the end, they've forgotten that they needed to be a good father and be a good example, to be a good brother and be a good example, a good husband, be a good example, a good man, and follow the example of Jesus that our Father sent to give us this example so we could go, oh, that's how it's done. But he didn't just send Jesus. He sent my dad, Roy Master. He sent many people to give us examples along the way, to keep us, come on, keep going. You're heading in the right direction.
You're filling the void.
Well, and I hope to do a better job, because I look at my life that I had, that I still have, that, was this business I had, and it was a very fun life. I just got back from Houston, Texas, Utah, and Las Vegas. It was like a whirlwind trip, and it's a very fun job. So the question is, how can I take this with me? How can that be my ministry? And it's funny, because since I have been out of commission for about a year, I see all these people for the first time in person. I can't tell you how many times people came up to me, wanted to hug me, wanted to talk to me, wanted to say, you are such a inspiration and so on. And I thought about me? Me? Who are you talking to? Me? What have I done? You haven't seen me in a year. But somehow, if you are moving in the right direction, you weave it into your life. Like for today, I posted a bunch of scripture about what it means to be a father, what it meant to me. And so for each one of my kids, I put a little something and I posted on social media. And immediately people start commenting. And I thought, well, there it is. We're supposed to go out into the world and do whatever it is we do to be gainfully employed and make money and weave into the fabric of our lives the principles that we're talking about right here. We don't have to come here to, we don't have to go to church to talk about God. We need to make sure that it's woven into the fabric of our lives all day, every day. And then you'll get the thank you for being that man. Thank you for being the ripple effect in this world. You throw a pebble in the pond and it touches all the shores of that pond. And I thought, well, I don't feel like I did anything different because it wasn't a conscious, I'm going to be this guy today. It was just, I've decided I want to be more like my father, and my father wanted to be more like Jesus. And because his father, he was only 14 when his father passed, so he didn't know any better. But I want to be like my Father in heaven wants me to be. And he gave me all these wonderful examples. So guess what? I have no excuses, none. And I don't want to use the excuses because I'm sure I could go find some. The devil would provide them immediately if I said, what can I say to excuse this talking too fast or whatever it is. I think because I grew up with a lot of brothers and sisters and I was number 4, I had to get it out before the other ones shut me down, right? Well, I just held on to that for 45, 60 years, whatever it is. And I've always been kind of a guy that could say a lot in a short amount of time. Fill that unforgiving 60 seconds that Rudyard Kipling talks about. What does it say? He says you can fill 60 seconds with the distance run or something. You can read that poem. It's a wonderful poem. But I remember thinking, that's me. I can fill that time. Do a radio show, I'll fill that time. Guess what? I used to think my dad, when he was talking, I'm like, oh my God, he just sat there for 2 seconds. Didn't say a word. While he was thinking about how to fill that moment for that person he was talking about or to with something that would help them in their life. And so in the business, the radio business, that's called a pregnant pause. And it used to drive me nuts if he didn't say something for 2 seconds. And Rush Limbaugh was that kind of guy. You're like, oh, did the radio go off? And then he'd say something. And you're like, wow. But guess what? He got your attention because what he said had meaning in it. It was something that filled the air with more than just noise. I was a noise filler. I wasn't a meaningful person at that time of my life, but I want to be that.
We got a triple whammy: death of your mother, death of your father, death of Rush Limbaugh. And yesterday was Rush Limbaugh's last radio broadcast. And I was sitting there and I was going, God almighty, I got to have some form of what's going on in the nation. I'm very political. My sons get very angry with me because I send them I sort things out. I find out what's the best thing I can send, on an email. And my sons kind of get irritated at times because of the truth going on, but I still got to send it to them. It's something inside me says, do it.
They've got to find it themselves. I, as a parent, did that a little bit with my kids. It backfires.
I saw one of these Proverbs or a psalm or something that said something about that. And I realized I'm watching my children. The youngest is 21 and the oldest is 33. And my kids, some are watching the political world, some are not interested at all. They just want to live their lives, but to each in their own time and ability. And what happens is it comes back to that, if you live a good life, if you live an honorable and noble life, and if you aren't trying to be willful and willfully shove these principles down their throat, then they'll follow you. But you have to not try and say, come with me. You can say, hey, this is what I believe, and so whatever you think, but I just want to keep you abreast of what's going on. It's all how you deliver that information. And, I have a lot of friends that are all over the map, from guys that are gay to women that are lesbian, that are liberals. Oh my gosh, I went and had lunch with one of my liberal friends in Arizona last week. And this guy is such a hardcore liberal, but there's something about it. It's like, he says, why do you deal with him? Because first of all, I was just about to say it. There's something about him that I know in his heart he is a good man. But he comes from the music industry and the music world. And so what I do is I don't judge him. I don't judge him good. I don't judge him bad. I know that he's a good, honest, honorable man. And he loves the truth, but he just has a real different outlook on the political world than I do. And he's kind of a guy that I wonder about. I'm like, why don't I just, unfriend him in life and on social media? Because I've known him a long time now, and I know his heart, right? So no matter what comes out of his mouth and what rhetoric or whatever it is that he wants to try and feed to me, I just hear it. I don't judge it good. I don't judge it bad. And I just go, okay, well, whatever you think. Time will tell. We'll find out over time what is the truth.
What is judgment?
It says, what is judgment? Okay. What is judgment? First of all, judgment is mine, saith the Lord. Okay? Anytime in your heart you make a decision, just like you can say, well, Alan is good or Alan is bad. First of all, that's judgment. Now, if you add, that's judgment. The judge, so there's a judge in the court that has to make a judgment, but he doesn't do it with resentment and judgment in his heart. He just looks at the facts and he makes his judgment on the case. Okay, come back to us. When we make a decision about somebody, that guy's bad, and I'm going to say bad because that's the easiest one, but then it's because you are prejudiced, angry, hateful, whatever it is. He cuts you off. Hey, jerk, raise the middle finger. You see the temptation is there all the time. It is basically you have fallen to the temptation to use your lower nature and judge somebody with resentment, anger, frustration, those emotions, okay? But it happens also, the double-sided sword, when you judge somebody to be good. Because judgment is mine, saith the Lord. We're not supposed to judge. We're just supposed to be the observer and watch. And then the Lord will show you what you need to know about a person. Okay? He'll show you in time. In time, when you're patient. When you judge somebody good, you have handed yourself. You have literally put yourself in the hands of the devil, because now you have opened the door because you've already made the decision. You've made the decision, this person's good. Now, but what happens is that person most likely will let you down, take advantage of you. And when we get these partners in business and we judge them good, this is a good partner, this is going to be a good person. And then later on they disappoint you because they make a mistake, do something wrong, or do something wrong not making a mistake because they're an evil-hearted person. But you have nobody to judge, or nobody to blame, I should say, but yourself. Because the idea is when you go into business, you should have an agreement. And you should look at that agreement and make sure that it's, pretty ironclad. And then if they do something wrong, you can say, hey, you've breached that agreement. And so guess what? We're going to have to settle the way that this calls for. The problem is that most of us, we get a good feeling about judging somebody good. And it's back to the feelings again, and we get fooled by our feelings. The devil sent a snake to Eve and said, hey, if you eat that fruit, you can be like God. Really? Wow, that'd be cool. I can be like God. God doesn't want you to be like him because he's a selfish guy. He wants to be the only one. Have a bite. Watch, nothing will happen. She takes the bite. She goes, look, nothing happened. I could be like God. It's a good feeling. See, he used a good feeling to get to Eve. And he got to Adam because Adam, of course, he was the first one. He didn't realize, he needed to correct his wife. He wasn't using great wisdom at that moment, and so we all suffer for that. But God fixed that later with Jesus so that we have a way back. So here comes another one of those questions. What is the way back? He said, it's okay. It's all right. These are all good. The way back is repentance and recognizing that you've made mistakes. You've sinned. You've missed the mark. And saying, Lord, I missed the mark. I'm sorry. I have sinned. forgive me. And guess what? You're going to do that over and over again, because you don't just say, I'm sorry once. A lot of these folks, these born again Christian people, they'll say, I've been baptized, I'm born again, which makes you want to judge them good. Okay? This is a lifelong process. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fall onto your knees and say, God, like you did. You fell off your bed with a stroke and you said, Lord, please help me. Either take me or bring me back.
I got to question you on one thing. You said you don't cry.
No, I didn't say I don't cry. I said I don't cry often, and it's a very rare thing.
Okay.
Listen, I can cry. To me, it feels good to cry. It really does. I mean, it's like, oh, it just feels so good. I know it does. And I guess I'm a person that likes to show my pain to the Lord. And I think that it's a very private thing for me. And if I cry, I'm usually crying for God to help me. Or I look at my situation with my mom and my dad, and I cried one day when I was looking at the pictures, because we made that video for my mom when she passed away about her life and what have you. And then there was the music. And so I'm watching my emotions kind of starting to bubble up. And I'm all by myself, and I'm looking at these pictures of my mom when she was a little, I guess not a little girl, because I don't really have any pictures of her when she was a little girl, but she was a young lady and getting married to my dad. And I'm watching all this, and I think probably everybody that watched that video got emotional, because the idea was to show you this person's life, and it worked. The right music, the whole thing. And I needed that to see it, because truthfully, I was happy for my mom that she had gone to a better place. Her suffering kind of was over, not being able to walk, remember, kind of going blind slowly, because the old people, their eyesight, all of us, we have a lifespan. We are perishable.
Your mother even converted people on her dying bed. The thing that got me, what was said, is the nurses around her cried when she died.
Same for my father. But I looked at my cry that night, that day, afternoon. I don't even think I told my wife. I looked at that. I watched that. I just looked at it. I thought, wow, that's such an interesting emotion crying is to me. Because my dad taught me how to be a man's man, if you know what I'm saying. The hammer. I joke around about, my wife used to call me the hammer. And I told the story about my dad using the ball-peen hammer on my car. And then I thought, oh, isn't that funny that she called me the hammer? I guess I got that from my dad, because he hit my car when I did something wrong one time. But I looked at the emotion and I thought to myself, I indulged in my emotions in that moment. But I had to do it. I had to do it so that I could do it and see it and recognize it and not judge it. Just kind of go, wow, look at that. I guess, just like I had my gallbladder out and you had your stroke, and who was it? Everybody, we all have a little something, don't we? We have a little come to Jesus moment. I want more of those come to Jesus moments, but not in on the operating table. I want them while I'm crying, or while I'm recognizing that I was impatient with my grandson, or I call it the come to Jesus moment before I do it. And I say, Jesus, WWJD, what would you do, Jesus? And Jesus, of course, will not answer, which means you're not supposed to do anything in that moment.
Isn't rage or anger like a horse? You got to pull back on the reins gently.
If you're riding the horse, yes. Yes, if you're riding the horse, you got to pull back on the reins. What I do is realize that I'm not riding that horse. That horse wants me to ride it. That horse is the devil. He wants me to ride it.
The pulling back on the reins is the meditation.
Well, yeah, maybe perhaps in the beginning. What I recognize now is I'm not going to ride the horse. I see the horse. I recognize the horse as the rage. That stubbornness will get you on the back of that horse. And then that horse could be a bucking bronco. That horse could be a scorpion, that it's got a big tail up in the air and it's going to sting you in the back of the head. That's why don't take the challenge. I'm going to tell the story about the challenge. My wife and I when I was in Las Vegas with you when we first got married, Jan sitting here, she's like, what? I'll give you an example of the challenge, okay? When I was a young man of probably, I don't think we even had any children yet, so probably 27, 8 years old, we went to visit my wife's mother in Las Vegas. And when you go to Vegas, what do? Gamble. You gamble. Look at the girls. Well, he looks at the girls. But yes, and they have, billboards everywhere of the girls for the guys. And, then they have Thunder Down Under for the ladies. I mean, it's all there. That's why they say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. It doesn't. It actually, what happens in Vegas goes with you for the rest of your life, so you better be careful. Yeah. But we went to Las Vegas, and I think we went to play 21 somewhere. We played blackjack or something we took $20 a piece, right? Do you remember this? Well, no, I'm pretty sure we went and maybe $20 each, like a pinball machine. You allow yourself a few quarters. And, of course, I lost mine in about 3 seconds flat. And Jan's a better card player because she's from Las Vegas and her family plays cards, but I'm not a card player. But for whatever reason, we went to bed that night, and I'm lying there asleep, and all of a sudden, the Grim Reaper comes to the window. Literally, the Grim Reaper with the hood, and you couldn't see the face, just darkness. And it was at night, and we're sleeping. And this is the most bizarre thing, so it'll take me a moment to tell you, because I talked about the challenge. Don't take the challenge. So the Grim Reaper's standing outside the window, and he's not saying a word, but he's speaking into my soul. And he's basically challenging me in some way. Like, I'm here. Do you want to take a challenge? And I'm, at this time, a young man, a young, prideful man. Sure, I'll take your challenge. Remember the song, The Devil Came Down to Georgia? Okay? And that Grim Reaper was challenging me. I don't even know what this challenge was. And so in my spiritual nature, I got up and I got to the window, and there was the Grim Reaper standing outside with the big hood. I couldn't see anything. There was a black hood and a black figure, and it had a hood over its head, because really it was just kind of a evil spirit. I could see it in my spiritual eyes, if you know what I'm saying. And so I got up and I went to the window, and of course I'm still laying in bed, but all this is all happening in the psyche. And basically, the challenge was this: if you can blow faster than I can suck, you'll win, and you'll win it all. Now think about that, how bizarre that is. It's like, well, I got some good lungs. I can blow really hard against your sucking, if you know what I'm saying. So
he wants you to play his game.
Right, exactly, right. It doesn't matter what it is. It's like the most ridiculous thing in the world. I was like a little kid, and I get up and I go, all right, so are you ready? It's like an arm wrestling match. Are you ready? I'm ready. And so I basically put my lips up to this screen that was all there was between inside and outside, and I went, and I blew really hard, and what did he do? He sucked when I was all done blowing, and he sucked, and I couldn't breathe. So here, I'm in my bed, I start choking. I can't breathe. My wife, she wakes me up. She goes, what are you doing? Are you okay? What are you doing? And I woke up. Now, she says, what happened? I said, you just saved my life. And I told her what happened. And I said, what took you so long? But the challenge, the most ridiculous challenge in the world, if you can blow faster than he can suck the air. I mean, think of that, how stupid it is. We take the challenge, and you, the bucking bronco, the horse pulling on the rein, don't just be the observer. Don't agree, don't disagree.
Look at me. I'm bald, fat, and ugly. And the thing is my body has just deteriorated. And what did I get out of jumping on that horse and unloading?
To each in his own time and ability, and here you are.
I believe that the Father wants us all to experience what life is like without Him when we're doing things on our own, in our own way.
When Jesus was crying on the cross, his Father turned his back, just left him, and Jesus felt that his Father left him, and says something about God don't forsake me or something like that. I can't remember what he said.
Father, Father, why hast thou forsaken me?
So, what happens to all of
Hard
us?
for me taking advice from a woman.
That's okay.
Take it from a tiki.
I'm prejudiced as hell.
That's okay. It doesn't matter. You know why? Truth is truth, whether it comes out of a woman or a man. And if there's something in you that wants to hear the truth, it will hear it no matter who it's from. Now, I want to say, we're on this earth, we're yielding to different forces in our life. We're either yielding to temptation or we're yielding to something that is a higher nature. We're going back and forth. But we all get to do it our own way and then suffer the consequences, right? Now,
I got to put a little bit of laughter in here. Who was it? Frank Sinatra wrote Do It My Way.
That's right. That's right. Now, to me, what this is all about is not whether you're good or bad, but that God has planted truth, a seed of truth. I'm assuming in everybody. I don't know if it's everybody, but there's a seed of truth. It's in there.
Isn't that seed? Jesus Christ died on the cross to go to heaven, and he put that spirit in all of us.
Well, listen, let me finish the point, okay? Even as a child, we know what's right and wrong. It's conscience, okay? But something's always missing for us because we have that little separation from the Father. Even though as children we're closer, there's still a little separation because of Adam and Eve. And something inside us knows that something's missing. And it's like He wants us to go through this life, in my opinion. It creates a yearning for Him. This whole life, we just yearn. And that seed, like reaching for the sun, is like it's constantly reaching and yearning. And everybody has a different path to the sun and a different life of manure that is piled on top of them before they reach out, right? But to me, it's not about I'm a good person, I'm a bad person. It's about God wants you to come back to Him. He wants the relationship back with His sons and daughters. And that's why He sent Jesus to bridge that so that we could get back.
There's a movie out, The Passion of Christ. Everybody ought to watch that. I watch it about once a year, and it wakes you up the suffering that Jesus went through.
Yeah. So, you said you're prejudiced against women, and of course, I was brought up, a He-Man woman hater. But I wasn't a He-Man woman hater. That's the Little Rascals had that He-Man woman haters club. A lot of people think my dad hates women and hated women and all the rest, and it just wasn't true. And the proof is in the pudding. And I'm going to read this. This is Corinthians 7:14. For the unbelieving husband is made holy because of his wife, and the unbelieving wife is made holy because of her husband. In other words, our relationship as we perfect it helps us to become better human beings. There's a long journey. We've been together 40 years, this woman and I. And there's been some ups and downs in there. But you know what? I'm a better man because God gave me her to help show me me. And likewise, He gave her me to help show her about her. The same way that our children, they're like looking in the mirror. We see our mistakes in our children. But I recognize that in my life, I had so many perceptions of what life was going to be. Judgments. You can say perceptions or judgments. I had judged what life was going to be like under the umbrella of Roy Masters, because when I became conscious of how what a good man my dad was, I thought, well, look at me. That's my dad. I'm going to be good. I judged my own self a good guy for a little while. And then, of course, God slapped me to the ground and said, stop that. On my 30th birthday, we gave birth to a baby that passed away. I've told that story. And I said to God, and I got the answer. I said to God, why me, God? I thought I was one of the good ones. I really did. I judged myself good. I thought, look at everything I've touched has turned to gold. I lived a charmed life. And I had a charmed life. I had a beautiful wife, great kids, nice house, fun business. Everything I touched turned to gold until it didn't. And then guess what? God says, we're going to show you what you really are, what you're really made of. And it started with on Father's Day, which is today, losing a baby 31 years ago today. It was my birthday, but it was also Father's Day, that particular. Yes, it was June 21st of 1990. We had a 2-year-old baby boy, and this little girl just wasn't meant to be. And I called my dad, and he says, oh, that's terrible. He says, well, God loves you so much, he wants you to have a perfect baby. He said, just like a tree drops a leaf, this one will go back to where it came from, and God will give you a perfect baby. And then my daughter Rebecca would say, well, I'm that perfect baby. I only have one daughter. But I recognize, just like you earlier in this talk judged yourself as a bad guy, saying, I want to be around people that are better than me. I had done the opposite, thinking that I was better than other people because God made me Roy Masters' son. It's the same exact mistake. The opposite end of the pendulum. You were on the one side of the pendulum and I was on the other. Now, I had to go through hell for the next 5 years. Hell, literally. But when you're going through hell, keep going.
Can I make a confession? In my youth, I was a thief. It started, I stole money out of my mother's purse. Then it graduated. I got a paper route. And during my paper route, I saw bikes laying around. I stole bikes. I put them in a friend's place, and I painted them and sold them. And the thing is every time a child cried about a bike, God, I had pain like you wouldn't believe.
Guilt.
And actually, this guy's brother came to me. He says, hey, why don't you steal mags off of cars? And all of a sudden, it hit me like a thunderbolt. And I said, no, I don't want to do it anymore. I do that, I'm going to wind up in jail. But I'm very sorry about, what I've done. I don't do it anymore. And the thing is that any way I can help people, to put a Band-Aid on it, so to speak, I donate. But now my body's so jacked. I got a bad back, and I've had a stroke, and the upper part of my right body, it's numb, and I tore a rotor cuff in my shoulder. I'm crying on you, but the stroke woke me up. It was like a slap in the face, like you said.
So that thief that was on the cross next to Jesus, where did he end up? Just remember that, okay? Because we were all thieves, just so you know. We were all thieves until one day we wake up to it.
I want to say something to you about, so there was something, a consciousness in you that said, I don't want to do it anymore. That's like the reins that we're talking about, to rein in the anger. See what I mean? But it's not yours. Something inside of you didn't want to do it anymore. So you have it. You just need to tap into it.
It's a very good point, because guess what? You didn't have to pull any reins, did you? No. God put in your heart what you needed to know, and you acted on it. Right there is that secret for you. What's your first name? Roger. That's the secret you need to know. It's that easy. To stop sinning, you have to yearn for the truth and the light. And then in that moment, God puts in your heart the truth, and it's just, boom, you're free. You didn't, it was effortless. Wasn't it effortless? You said to your buddy, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm done with that. That's how effortless changing one's life is.
Something. I saw a movie, it's called What Women Want, with Mel Gibson and Helen Hunt. And the thing is that it is a good movie. I watched that movie. At first the movie was kind of corny, but the last of the movie, I'm not going to tell anybody about it. You ought to watch the movie. It is really a good movie. This guy,
he becomes a woman or something.
Thoughts and all this stuff, you know, and it's funny as all get out, but it's all truth. It really is.
Okay. Oh my gosh. You know what women want? They want a good father, and they want that man that they're married to act and be that good father. And because what I realize is, you know, I had a good father. And so I've never experienced not having a good father. I don't know what that is. Like I said, I was born into this.
Father too, through your father.
Yes, that's true. And so you know now, who listened to my dad for all those years, what a good father was like. But that's what a woman wants. She wants her husband to love her enough not to look at her like a popsicle. And it's hard because men look at women as objects. God made them beautiful. But guess what? He made them beautiful so they could also rise above that and appreciate their beauty in a different way instead of a lower nature way, a higher nature way. And you start to see the beauty in all things around you. We were joking earlier about, you said that it's hard for you to hear the truth from a woman. And Chuck said something that I thought the exact same thing in the exact same moment it came out of his mouth. He started laughing. He said, you should be able to hear the truth from a dicky bird. We don't know what a dicky bird is, but that was my dad's thing. It doesn't matter where the truth come from, but you caught yourself and you said, I just judged you. And you're seeing it. See, there is the man sitting in the chair now, separating himself, seeing the other side of you, offering suggestion, offering judgment, offering hate, offering lust, offering all these things, and you accepting them.
When I was a kid, I went to church, and the first thing I was taught, go into somebody's house, find something nice in their house, and compliment them. No, that was me. Oh God, I wanted to puke.
That's
but
what they taught you at church?
yeah.
Well, church. So I want to tell you what happened to me. Yesterday I was in Las Vegas, yesterday morning, and I went to a big event. And the wife of the man that puts on this big event, I mean a huge event, I had a falling out with them. And so this was my first time back. The falling out happened before COVID. So this is my first time back. So I go back, and the woman comes over to me and compliments me so much that it was so embarrassing that the people around me started feeling embarrassed. It was guilt. And when this woman was giving me all these compliments, I just looked at her and smiled. It made her so uncomfortable that she had to keep heaping the compliments. Your hair is so nice. There's something about you that's so, and another thing, and the shoes, and your belt. I love your belt. I told a friend of mine something that happened. I said, did you see how uncomfortable she got? And he says, yeah. He goes, that was weird. It was just over the top. And I said, because she was trying to control me. She was trying to make me open the doors of my soul and say, I accept you. You like me, I like you. But I just stood in contrast to her kind of insane complimenting. And then it looked insane because, well, if you don't accept or not accept the compliment, it just is what it is. You can just say thank you. But what happens is people try to control you. A lot of times, I'm going to go to the negative, they'll say, hey, you dirty, rotten, fat pig, right? They're trying to upset you. When somebody tries to make you angry, they're trying to gain control. They're trying to get you to react. And if you react, what did my dad always say? If you react, I've got you. Okay? If you've reacted, they've got you. Now, on the other side of that same double-sided sword, if somebody gives you a compliment and you react and get puffed up, they've got you. She didn't get me because I did nothing. I just smiled at her, just kind of like, Thank you. And she didn't know what to do, so she tried again. And then she looked around and see what people were thinking, and she says, maybe it's your hair. I just love your hair. And I went, well, I said, I work hard at it. I just sit here and it grows. I wish it was, right? Because a bald guy says he wishes. But you see, I didn't try to make her feel bad. I just was not going to be upset, uplifted or upset either way. And so she finally just said, I'm glad you're here, and turned around and walked away. And when she walked away, I looked at the guy next to me, and he looked at me, and he was like, what was that? Well, because this person makes her way through life upsetting people, not in a negative way, but in a positive way, so she controls the environment. She controls the environment because guess what? You would never say no to this person because they have built you up. They have lifted you up. They make you feel good. You would never say, no, I disagree with that about anything because, well, you don't want to be, like Chuck said, you don't want to offend them. It's my job sometimes to offend. So in that moment, there was nothing there.
They built you up, they can tear you down.
They can control you, correct. So now you had a confession to make. Your whole thing about me being better was a lie. Is that what you were going to say?
Okay, in my youth, I was a thief. My mother caught on to me and said,
How old were you? I'm just curious. 13, 14, 15?
Yeah, around in there. And my mother, I didn't have a father. My father was so weak, it was pathetic.
Evil?
Not evil. He wasn't there.
Okay.
And no, he wasn't an evil man, okay. But he wasn't there. And my mother, she was very strong, very angry woman, and she used my brother. She really messed with my brother. He was really banged up by my mother. And she used my brother to beat me.
Older or younger brother?
Older brother. And it got to a point where I got beat up so much by my brother that one time my parents left and my brother and I were there, and my brother just got on top of me, pinned my arms down with his legs, and just started beating me. My head was hitting the floor like a bowling ball. And finally I got to the point where I felt like my brother was going to kill me. And I told my brother, I says, you got to stop, Ed, you're going to kill me. And all of a sudden, something happened. My brother quit. But man, I was beat up so doggone bad that I went over to my best friend's house, and his mother coddled me. Oh, you're such a good boy. Your mother, she thinks you're a bad boy. I was a bad boy. My mother just got fed up, and she couldn't handle me, so she went to the force of physical.
So you took that coddling and that love and caressing from another woman as and comfort. Beating. Well, yeah, the beating, right? But you probably became very woman-centered after that.
Yes.
So,
became very sexual.
Yeah.
So I was so sexual.
I didn't want to say that. I was leaving that up to you.
No, seriously. When I first got married, I had hair. And then after my marriage, you know how that goes in the beginning. And the thing is my body started deteriorating like two black widows, a male and a female.
Right.
I started shrinking and shriveling up.
The wages of sin is death, and sin is missing the mark.
Don't blame your marriage.
What do you mean?
Well, you said you're all shriveled up, losing your hair, because of your...
Fault. It's my fault, not because I was so lustful.
This is a good talk today, isn't it? It's got a lot of meaning in there. And, when you reach that stage of your life where you stop harboring the dark side, your sins, your mistakes, that's the beginning of a new you. And, well, where you're at today, and I want to be careful not to give you a compliment because I don't want you to get high on it. But when you get to that point of your life where you are not harboring and protecting your sins and you're exposing them to the light, talking about them, bringing them out, you're purging yourself of these things. And
I feel lighter.
You will feel lighter because you're carrying around a bag of, bones, old nasty things in there. But it takes a next version of you. The old version didn't work, did it? The old version where you were just a selfish, self-righteous, angry, judgmental man.
I was.
That doesn't work.
No.
And you got to, first of all, admit that. You got to look at that and say, all right, well, look, I've lived, how old are you? How old are you? I've lived 72 years, and this is a bad situation. I better make some changes in my life before I go to hell with this.
You've experienced this, and I've experienced this. When I had my stroke, my oldest son came over, and it was like the father-son. And what I dished out all my life, I started getting back from my sons and my daughter. And I sat there, and as it came to me and bounced off me, I said, do I deserve it?
You evidently do.
And I just shined it off. And I said, let it go. I did wrong. I apologize for that. And I'm a lot better than I was. I still got a long way to go.
So I've heard my father say, and you guys have all heard it too, what's worse than the sin that you did was making excuses for the sin that you did. You got to admit it. And so with your children, you got to be willing to do that too. If you don't acknowledge, like if they come to you with the sins that you laid on them and you don't acknowledge them and apologize for them, then that sin, now they have to, figure that on their own. But if you set the example to say, you know what, I was wrong and I'm sorry. Boom. No excuse. Well, it's because your mother. It's because of my this or my that or my mother. Everybody has a million excuses, a million of them. I'm sorry. It's the hardest thing in the world to do, is to just apologize without any excuse, not a breath of excuse.
An excuse is like putting a Band-Aid on it, right?
Yeah, because you're going to keep it alive. You're trying to heal the mistake. And you don't want to heal a mistake. The mistake is bad. It's gone. It needs to go away. And the only way it's going to go away is to repent and apologize.
Just watch it each time it comes up, and it gets less and less and less, right?
Just observe. Just watch. Okay. Just watch. Well, so I want to come back to Father's Day because, first of all, I woke up this morning and I thought, well, it's Father's Day, and I miss my dad. Of course I miss my dad. I love my dad. But I know my dad is hearing those thoughts. He's in another realm that hopefully I can, make it to and have some time with him again for eternity. But I thought, boy, I'm so grateful. So grateful for where I am in my life, the children that I've raised with my wife, where they are in their lives. And I thought, I just am grateful. And knowing that my children aren't perfect, knowing that I'm not perfect, my wife's not perfect, this world's not perfect, knowing all those things, but you can be grateful for what you have. It's the old, I was sad when I had no shoes until I saw a man that had no feet. I can just be grateful that my children are healthy, although my grandson has got a cold right now and he's throwing up, so I won't get to see him today. But life is full of these challenges, and how you deal with them shows the character of the man or woman. How you're able to stand objective to them is going to help what's going to happen next. But if you get caught up in all the thoughts and all the analyzation and the analytics and the data, all it's going to do is pull you down a rabbit hole.
So one thing that helps me is when somebody does something really rude to me, I ask the question, did I ever do that in my life to somebody else?
Because you now know what it feels like.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when somebody does something rude or mean to me, I immediately look at it as that opportunity that I've never dealt with right before. Here's my chance. Here's my opportunity. Like my dad says, you have to be thankful when somebody's rude to you because now you have an opportunity to deal with it correctly. So I've gotten past that. And then this one that happened yesterday where the person was extremely nice to me. And listen, you'll get the same outcome. You're controlled by something. Yeah. I don't want to be controlled by something. But this person was, can I say this with air quotes, important, right? The wife of the guy putting on this massive event. Her compliments were nice. Who doesn't want to be complimented, right? So all these little temptations, but I just stood there objective to it. And I could hear my brain offering all kinds of things. And I could hear them, but they were kind of like the clouds. They were off in the distance. They were there. I knew I was conscious of them, but I just stood there objective to the whole thing. And then when she walked away, it was the strangest thing because she didn't control the environment. She didn't control me. There's no strings attached. I can't even imagine what she's thinking. Wow, that didn't work. Now she's probably hating me. She's probably hating me because I didn't take her gifts of compliment, right? So I don't care. It's not up to me to control what she's thinking. It's up to me to learn how to gain control over this vessel and step apart from the whirlwind of thoughts and intellect and, like I said, analytics and data that will try and pull us into that world. I want to be on the world, but not of the world.
As I grew and became better through your dad, my wife shriveled and died of diabetes, ketoacidosis. And that's all I got to say.
You more than likely were both enabling each other into that grave. And because, I mean, you're overweight. You admit it, you're overweight, right?
Yes. After I hurt my back, I couldn't work. And the thing is that I'm disabled, and I can only do so much in a day, and I got to sit down.
But you're holding on to that weight and continuing to satiate your pain and your guilt and all that because you're overeating.
I thought about that. When you hoard yourself, you don't eat. Your body holds on to your fat. That's what I've heard.
Ketosis. You need to look up on the internet ketosis and how it works, and it may explain things to you.
I've been doing a diet called the keto diet, and the body goes into ketosis, and then it consumes fat as its energy. So that's what he was talking about. But the thing is that, see, what happens is, by the way, Roger, you're making excuses for all these things that's keeping you in that state. Because you look at my dad. My dad was 93 years old when he passed. He would have been here 7 days a week.
Making less excuses, put it this way.
That's an excuse. So you know, so as you're seeing this, so we can laugh at it, but take it to heart, because that's how the mind works. The mind wants to make it okay to be who you are and how you are in your state. And I remember the one thing that helped me the most with my dad, I'm going to give him all the compliments that I probably always should have and never did, which was, I went to my dad when I was about 18 or 19 years old. Maybe he'll hear this. Dad, on Father's Day, I'll tell you the good advice you gave me. When I went to go out with my friends, and he said, just no drinking and don't do this and don't do that. And I said, Dad, compared to my friends, I'm like the best. And my dad says, never compare yourself to anybody else. If you want to compare yourself to anyone, compare yourself to Jesus Christ. Now how do you feel?
That's heavy. That's heavy.
Right? It is heavy. And because I realized, compared to my friends, yeah, I mean, my friends were, they were all, they want to smoke pot or they want to drink or they want the girls. I was like, I was brought up differently. Of course, we're all tempted, but I looked at that and I just said, I don't want to do any of that. I watched my older brother David and my brother Michael and my sister Diane. I was that number 4 kid. I could see life. That was like the movie War Games. War Games, where the kid broke into the Pentagon and he had the computer play thermonuclear war. So it played all the scenarios. If they attack us, we'll attack them, and then it sped up and all the different scenarios. And the computer, through the analytics and the data, determined there's no way to win. You can't win in thermonuclear war because the whole world is gone. So the only way to win the game is to not play. So after watching my brothers and my sister, I could say to myself, well, I don't want to do these things because I've watched them do some of these things. And so it was easier for me, like my number 4 kid is the same way. He's watching his siblings. So where if you're a life studier, you watch people and you don't want to end up like this or end up like that. I made my own mistakes. Sure, I did. I made my own mistakes. Believe me. I'm looking at life. I want to finish well. I want to finish how my father finished. His children loved him, honored him, and respected him. The people of the world that he tried to help with their problems love, honor, and respect him. Then there's the haters, and who cares about the haters anyway, because the haters will hate, the liars will lie.
Okay, I feel shame when you say your father was very good to you, because I'm not there.
Well, but this is where you are now, okay? Now, if you want to finish well, stop making excuses. Don't make excuses, well, I'm disabled. Right. He just says he didn't realize he wasn't cool. Well, now you're aware to it. You're awakened to it. You're not woke anymore. You're awake.
What is an excuse?
You've been making them. I'm disabled. I'm
Supporting everything that's wrong.
making an excuse, making it okay to be the man that you have been. Why can't I get up and go do this? Because, well, I'm overweight. And guess what? When I get too overweight and my belly gets too big, my back hurts. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction kind of a thing in this spiritual nature. So the excuse mechanism is the big original sin for man. The original sin.
Make an excuse.
He did when Eve
Kicked him out.
Right. Eve made the mistake. Adam made the excuse. He should have corrected her. We'd have a whole nother world. But that obviously was not God's plan.
Your dad said, in simple terms, to answer your question, he said, an excuse is nothing but a shield against reality. And that's it. Very simple.
So if you want to finish well, stop making excuses. And every time you catch yourself making an excuse, just look at it and just say, there it is again. Just like you said, I judged you. You said to my wife, because she's a woman. All you got to do is catch it, see it. And you don't have to say it out loud.
And the government's made.
He just realized that the lady he's sitting next to is my wife. So just so you know, we got 3 guys outside. They're going to mug you for talking bad about her.
And disability can be a big excuse too. I know, like with my mom and her boyfriend, I think millions of people do this because the government has made it very easy to do. They made it a massive excuse, and they found a loophole and found a disability, and they stopped working. So they didn't have to look at themselves, which work brings out. You have to look at your weakness. You have to grow. Well, a huge excuse to eliminate that and to have the government pay you. That's horrible. It's horrible.
I'm embarrassed because I'm disabled and I'm fully dependent upon the government, and I get my Social Security disability, and that's all I have. I'm losing everything because everything's going up and up in price. I'm going to lose my house. I got to sell it or bring somebody in to live with me, and I'm hard to live with.
That I can tell. Well, this guy right here needs a room.
But maybe you're more able than you realize.
You make excuses so you don't have to do anything. Yeah. So I want to tell a story. We went to Wendy's yesterday to get a hamburger, and we're like, what's going on with this drive-through line? What is going on? We're sitting here, and it's not moving. And I said, I think if we just go in, it's probably quicker. There was like 6 cars, and it just wasn't moving. So we went around, and we went in, because it's like, let's get this burger. It's like, this is a simple thing. And my wife comes back out. She says, I think this was a bad idea. There's a line in there as well. And so I said, well, it's too late now. Let's just go. And she goes back in and she waits. And then I see the car that was out in the front pull around to the front. And we had determined that they just don't have enough help. Nobody wants to work. Nobody wants to work. You see $16.50 at Taco Bell. They'll give you a $600 signing bonus to work at Taco Bell. Honestly, and people are being enabled by the government, okay, to not work. This is the devil.
I couldn't get a job anywhere.
That's not true. There's another excuse. There is, because you have a brain and you've got 2 hands. And even if you didn't have 2 hands, you look at the disability people that have lost their limbs, and they're working, and they have a thing they put in their mouth, and their wheelchair takes them around, and they guide it through their mouth. As long as you have the ability to open your mouth and breathe, you have the ability to work. So quit making excuses.
Okay, I'm a dumb person.
I know. I can tell.
I'm not as smart as Chuck.
But again, you're condemning yourself. Why do you do that to yourself? You got to stop
Good
that.
question.
Yeah, you got to stop that.
Did your mom tell you you were stupid, or anybody else?
I was an alcoholic when I was a teenager. I didn't pay for any of my booze. I stole it all. And drinking all that booze destroyed my brain. It fried it.
Here's the thing. You have made so many excuses today. You don't even hear them, do you? Everything is, you fried your brain, you're disabled. They're all excuses.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just give you one little word of advice, okay? I have never heard a session where someone asked so many deep, meaningful questions as you asked today. And it wasn't you asking them, it was something asking them through you, because they were right on the mark. Just let that process work and forget about all the other crap.
I've heard a few good ones. This is just kind of a mediocre session. Chuck gave this one a 5-star. No, it's good. He's making a point to you that these questions that you think are dumb questions, Chuck's looking at them going, these are great questions. But you are over here going, I'm just a dumb guy. I don't know. First of all, truthfully, the reason why you feel dumb right now is because you place too much importance on your intellect, which is what keeps you who you are and what you are. You got to get out of the way of the intellect and let God put his knowing in your heart. And that knowing that you had when you wanted to stop stealing, when your friend offered you that last thing, and you said, you know what? This ain't right. It was that easy. It was this ain't right, and I'm not going to do it anymore. That's how simple it is. And if you could just go, all my intellect that's telling me I'm dumb, it ain't right. It's a lie. The liar lies. The liar's lying to you. You're not that dumb.
All this anger in me has just pushed my family away from me, and I'm alone. I know. I know. You're right. Yeah. You're right.
So now you have to be where you are, and it's a new beginning.
And stop trying to analyze and figure out the science behind what's going on. Yeah, your head. Get out of your monkey brain. Your monkey brain controls you. It's on your back. And you are letting it steer you around through life and make all these excuses why you can't do anything. Soon enough, you'll be going, I don't know, my shoulder hurts and my back hurts, and who's going to wipe me? You're going to get to that point where you're going to have somebody come in, and God is going to let you humiliate yourself a friend of mine got into a crash one time, a guy named Smitty. And some of you guys remember Smitty used to be at Tall Timber Ranch many years ago. He had gotten into a crash and lost an arm from above the elbow, and he had a stubby. And we used to joke with him and say, how you doing, bub? How's your stubby? Right? Because he had a stubby arm. But he was a big, giant man. Half of his body got burned, and he had scar tissue all over his body. His girlfriend got killed in this motorcycle crash. So that woke him up for a while. He came to Tall Timber Ranch, and then he got back into drinking, and he asked me to borrow one of my cars. And I said, what are you going to do? Because he was helping me do some car stuff. He said, I just need to go to the laundromat and do my laundry. And I thought, all right, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you. What did he do? He went out and got drunk. He went the wrong way down a one-way street and was going head on to somebody, and he had to pull off the road and ran right into a telephone pole. Not only did he put his head through the windshield because he wasn't wearing a seatbelt, the car caught on fire. And now he's hanging through the windshield, and the car's on fire, and the police come, and the ambulance come, and they reach in, and they grab this guy, and they pull him out, and he goes, oh my gosh, he doesn't have an arm. And they're like, they look at him, and they go, no, that guy didn't already have an arm from another crash, right? And he made so many excuses. He says to me one day, he says, God must have something really important for me to do in my life because he's keeping me alive. And I said, wait a second. Don't think like that, because if you think God has something important for you to do because he's keeping you alive, then you're going to keep making these mistakes because you got a golden parachute and you feel like God will keep you alive until one day you miraculously do this thing. And that's a trick the devil is telling you. God doesn't want you to mutilate yourself, but he's not going to stop you. If you want to do that, that's your choice. A man is the sum total of all of his choices in life, correct? You must choose God over all these excuses and reasons, this intellect, the monkey brain, because you're alive until the day you're not. And when you finally go to the pearly gates, God says to you, what have you done? What have you done to yourself?
That's what scared me the hell out of me when I was on the floor with a stroke. I said, I'm not ready to see Christ.
Well,
I need to clean my act up.
so get busy. Stop making excuses, because if you make another excuse, which is God must be keeping me alive for something big, it's just another excuse for you to go back and keep being the way you've been. And you know what? You need to stop making excuse right now. You need to tell your mind to shut the hell up, because it's going to take you to hell.
I came here for one reason. I wanted to be shamed, and I'm shamed. And being shamed changes you.
Well, okay. Where there is no pain, there is no gain. It said that on the gym. And when I was a kid growing up, and I would say, I can't lift that weight. And my coach would say to me, you see that up there where there's no pain, there's no gain? He goes, have you pushed that weight until it hurts? I said, I don't want to push that weight till it hurts. He says, you need to push that weight one more time, because through that pain, your muscles will grow stronger. You will grow. And I just remembered that. I remember thinking to myself, this pain is good for me. This pain, like you're saying right now, is good for you.
My brother beat the living out of me. And the thing is that when he left for the Army, he got drafted. I was pushing iron like crazy in the my garage, all his weights. I wanted to get as strong as he. And I did. And when my brother came back disabled from the Army, they threw him out, whatever. When he got home, he was just full of rage. And we had a fight. We broke everything in that bedroom, the beds, the dressers. And the thing is that it was the fight of the gargantuas. Nobody won. We beat the hell out of each other.
Thermonuclear war, the only way to win the game is not play.
Alone. Yeah. But my body was disabled. It was. I'm feeling it right now. I hurt my body pushing those weights. And
because you were pushing the weights for the wrong reason, for the ego.
Exactly.
Yeah. So remember the kid that came in? Remember the kid that came in the other day he couldn't stop talking. He's still that way. He's slowly catching himself, but he could not stop his flow of thought. And Roger, you have that same thing. You have a tornado of thought that is giving you a million reasons and a million stories, and it keeps you caught up in, my dad would call an eddy, the eddy of life. What happens is the reason for the meditation is to pull you out of that eddy that you're going around in circles in, round and round and round, and go. Life is flowing on, and you have literally been going around in circles in your life for the last 25 years, whatever it's been. And guess what? Your body is ravaged. Your mind is your monkey brain. It's told you that you are dumb. You don't have any good thoughts. So, and you've believed it enough to continue to.
I feel like a kid going to a new school with all new people around me, and I'm kind of nervous, and my mouth is going too much.
Well, and that's as long as you're recognizing that. But when you go home from here, you need to meditate and just watch your thoughts. Just watch those thoughts, but don't let them pull you in. Don't let them pull you in.
One of the tricks to the meditation, it took me years to figure this out, is not to fight it. In other words, when you start to meditate and you try to be aware of your body and you're present, you feel your energy in your hand or your fingers, whatever you're doing, you're trying to be in the moment. And before you know it, you're caught in your thoughts. And at some point you realize, oh gosh, what am I thinking about that? And then you start to concentrate on your hands again or whatever you're doing. The only part of that experience that was what the meditation is about was when you caught yourself in your thoughts. It's not when you turned off your thoughts and concentrated on your hand again, because that's the will. That's the will.
Every once in a while I get negative thoughts that come into my mind, truth about me. And then I repress, stop those thoughts from coming. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Has it worked?
No.
There's another place. You remember how you hated to be helpless as a boy?
Yeah.
God wants you to go back to that place inside so that you're helpless. You see the thoughts, you know the danger of them, you know how crazy they are, and you're caught in them, and then you notice you're just like you said to your friend, I don't think I can go steal hubcaps. Something in you told you that. that same power that was in you to tell that common sense thing and change the course of your life with your friend, that power that came through you will come into you in very gentle ways and regulate how you're pulled into your thoughts, so that you will be pulled in less or not as long, and at some point you will be about to be pulled in, and that consciousness will show you what's going on and what's hidden behind that. Behind that being pulled into your thoughts is a denial, and God wants to lead you to that very gently. And that's what you have to be willing to be led. And you've gone through everything now. So let's put the will aside and let's just go on this journey and let him lead you.
Deuteronomy 1:31. And what you're going through right here, it says, "There you saw how the Lord your God carried you, as a father carries his son, all the way you went until you reached this place." So, like Chuck was saying, and we have said to you, and you have heard, that quiet knowing that came into you that said, "I'm done." That was the voice of God that spoke into your heart, that was the wordless word, because he was there then, and he's here now, and that's why you're here, and other people are not.
All right, now, put your hands together in prayer-like fashion. So you get your hands and put your fingers together, fingertip to fingertip, thumb to thumb, first finger to first finger. It's just like you're praying, but keep your hands all maybe an inch and a half, your palms of your hands an inch and a half apart. You got that? Keep it just apart, just a little bit like that, till you can just feel the heat, the warmth of your hands going from one palm to the other. Okay? Now, it might be a good idea if you closed your eyes, but it really isn't necessary this first time. I just want you to look at your hands, or close your eyes, either way. And now, what I want you to do is be aware of your hands and see if by being aware of your hands, that you can kind of make them warm. Then thoughts come into focus. Then you see the thoughts you have to deal with when your eyes are closed. When your eyes are open, you are looking at the screen, or you're looking at the radio, or whatever it is you're doing. Then it becomes your thoughts, unless you get caught up in a daydream. But I want you either close your eyes or leave your eyes open. But if you choose to close your eyes, it's better. So you can hear me fine. Okay, now close your eyes if you wish. That is the better way. But concentrate. Just give your attention to your fingers and your thumb. See how they're together? Thumb, finger, first finger, second finger together like that. And see if you can be, just by being aware of them. Don't let your mind wander off. If your mind wanders off, you're not going to be aware. Your fingers are not going to tingle with warmth. It's like a little game. I want you to see if you can make your hands warm. When you're nervous, your hands get cold, clammy. All right. And when you're in control and you're together, your hands are warm. All right. That's only because nothing is acting on you. You're only together because nothing is acting on you at the moment. Start to get scared or frightened and start to react. Your hands get cold, right? Sign of stress. You're not dealing with things right. All right. Now let's get in control of our own bodies so the stress doesn't make our hands cold or make us afraid. Warmth will do that. There's a secret in the warmth of your hands. Now, concentrate. Not hard. I just want you to be aware that your hands are together in front of you, with your eyes closed. Would you do that, please? Bring your attention to your thumbs. Now shift your attention to the first finger. Now shift your attention to the second finger. And now the third one. Just be aware. That's all I ask you to be aware. If your mind wanders off, oops, something took your attention. Don't let it happen. Don't sweat it if it does. Just notice that it did happen. Just notice that it did. And then bring your mind back to thinking about your hands again, being aware of them. You don't even need to think of them if you can just notice that they're there and feel the warmth. just notice the warmth or the tingling of your fingers. First finger, shift your attention to second finger, and see at the same time you can feel warmth passing between the palms of your hands. See, first finger, shift your attention to the second finger, that's it. And now the third finger, go on. If your mind wanders off, now as though you're looking through the middle of your forehead, right there, with your eyes closed, that's you'd have to close your eyes for this one. As though you're looking through the middle of your forehead, don't look upwards with the pupils of your eyes, just notice that spot about, so halfway between the hairline, if you have hair, that is, and the eyebrows. Got it? Now, as though you're looking through the middle of your forehead, as though you can see little bright colors and like little atoms moving around inside your mind. There isn't that much thought when you do that. So you're just looking through your thoughts, and you're looking beyond your thoughts, and a flow of energy. You will feel warmth in those hands. And a lot of magical things are happening when you do that. I say it's magical because I haven't got time right this second to explain the physiology, the psychophysiology of it, the spiritual psychophysiology of it. But a lot of magical things are happen, and it's not suggestion either. One of the things that are happening is that what you know is right, you'll be able to do. And the second magical thing that's happening is that you'll find that you can see more clearly about people, but it won't upset you. You won't judge them. Simple. That's all I want to say. Just be aware of your hands as though you were looking through the middle of your forehead, and you're going to calm down. But not because Roy Masters says so. It isn't suggestion, you see. It is real. There's a difference between something suggested to you and something which is real. Now, concentrate on your hands. First finger, second finger, third finger, fourth finger. Just shift your attention as though you were looking through the middle of your forehead. Okay? Keep doing it. The thumb, actually. Start with the thumbs and first finger and second finger, and keep doing that. No matter what I say to you, it's all to help you keep your attention, help you. See if you can do it yourself. If your mind wanders off into some thought process, in some daydream. If he says that to me, I'll say that to him, and rehearsing some future encounter. Okay, just notice that's happened. Notice you're not aware of your hands. Feel the warmth of your hands. Just as long as you are being aware of your hands, as long as though you're looking through the middle of your forehead, as long as you just keep doing that like a cycle through the middle of your forehead, and you can almost see your hands sitting there. See if you can see an outline of your hands. Just be aware and shift your attention from one finger to another until you find yourself sitting there, noticing your hands and the thoughts going by you. See? You either see no thought, because looking at them kind of dissolves them. But only for a second or so, a split second, because they keep coming back and they keep trying to pull you in. And you keep looking at them. They'll tug on you. They'll keep pulling you in, but then you'll notice you're in, and then you're out. See? And you notice you're in, and then you're out. Keep doing it. I mean, it's fun. It's a simple thing, and you'll feel a little anxiety, perhaps, and then it slowly disappear. Now, be aware of your hands, and feel the warmth. You feel the warmth in your hands? And you're doing it right if you're feeling the warmth. Don't try too hard. Just notice your hands, and as you notice, the noticing itself produces that warmth. And what you're doing now is communicating from your mind to your body. Your soul is taking control of your thoughts, and also taking control of the way you feel and the way you react. And there's a sort of a flow from the innermost to the outermost limits of your being.